I have extra. Okay. Okay. Probably on his desk, yeah. I don't know why I have this. I will go ahead and call the September 12th, 2022 Special Commissioners meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss moving forward with the DLZ report. And, excuse me, I'm so sorry about that, and what we want to do. I know we'll need to have a joint meeting with the council and the commissioners here soon to have a discussion. So I will open this up to discussion. Anybody have anything to say? Or you want me to tape it down?
No, I'm just, until we find out how we're going to fund this, I'm trying to figure out what we're doing, because...
Well, we have to determine how we want to move forward. Do we want to have a joint meeting with the council? Do we want to, are there any questions that we need to find out before we have a meeting? Are there any questions? Because, you know, we just received this. We really didn't ask a whole lot of questions of DLZ in that meeting before we move forward in funding.
When can we bond again? When would it, and how much?
Well, according to that bonding report, I have it on my desk. Hang on. Sorry.
They will meet with us on our meeting next week.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, 5.7 million is what we're going after.
I want you to go after 11. I want you to go after 11.
We don't have that bonding capacity.
I'm just
We'd
saying
be
that's
going
what
way
I
in
want
the
you.
red if we went beyond 5.7. We'd be going over our debt limit.
That essentially is the renewal on the bond across the street.
It's a combination of the one across the street and the one that expires December 31st that I think you're over, Steve. The one that we passed in 2019. So it's a combination of running both of those together, the one that expires this year and the one that expires across the street, is my understanding. It's 5.7 is our debt limit, and the council does not want to exceed our debt limit. So, and they'll be coming to our meeting on the 22nd to go through details. So just look at 5.7 million.
So between that and...
Microphone, please.
Use
We're
Between-
live streaming.
Between that and the ARP money, my thoughts are concentrate on the priority ones, try to get them out of the way between now and middle of next year, maybe. I don't like to spend all the ARP money.
So it's going to take a lot of it. If we, well, I see what you're saying, just the priority one. My concern is if we don't do priority one and priority two, those priority twos are going to become priority ones very quickly.
Well, with the bond amount that Kenan just mentioned, we could probably do the ones and twos. But I wouldn't worry a whole lot right now about threes and fours. I think we need to save some ARP money for things that could come up. I'm not so sure about the economy next year.
Well, but ARP money, I don't know, what do you mean things that can come up? Because we can't put anything into our rainy day fund. We can't fund our general fund with it. Even though it went to lost revenue, there's still restrictions on what it can be spent.
Right, but it could come in handy for certain things, I'm
Right.
sure. Like, unforeseen repairs.
Well, I think, okay.
I just have a feeling that once you get into these priority
They're
ones
gonna
and
be-
twos,
it's
there's
gonna
gonna
be
be
more.
stuff that's gonna
Mhm.
keep going more. And then, I hate the fact that we're not doing everything, and I realize it's a financial issue, but then we just get,
I know.
we're guilty,
Yeah.
kicking the can down the road like everybody else.
Yeah, because you do priority ones, priority twos, then priority threes become priority twos pretty quickly, and priority twos, then, I mean, it's just a revolve. I agree, Steve. I would like to figure out a way, if we can. I know there's some funds that can go back that, you know, back into ARP that we appropriated, we appropriated more than what the actual cost was. There's some that we won't know yet until, like the digitizing records, I think we appropriated probably a couple hundred to $300,000 more in digitizing records. I've calculated roughly 175,446 can go back into the ARP from being appropriated that we haven't spent.
How much did you say? I'm sorry, I wasn't.
Roughly 175,446 that's not. So for example, premium pay, there's a balance left over after premium pay. Looks like the HVAC, there was a balance after the HVAC. The assessment of buildings, that's only $320. I know we appropriated, $750,000 for digitizing of records. I think that both of those contracts and quotes came in much cheaper. Much. It's still $400,000, I think, between the two. Yeah, so we'll have between $200,000 and $300,000 left on the digitizing of records. So some of that can go back. I don't know what we have balance in that's not been spent of the GO bond yet. I'm going to say it's approximately 700. Is that right, Debbie? About 7 of the current GO bond. Yeah, approximately 700,000 there.
since this is all primarily about money, probably we'd be better off with a joint meeting.
That's what this meeting is about, but we're just having a discussion before we try to set up a joint meeting, but with us before we set up a joint meeting.
Okay?
Yeah, that is what this meeting is about, just having a discussion and setting up a meeting. Because I wanted to go through the ARP funds as well, so just let you guys know. I do know that there will be some people attending, but that's not part of this meeting, so. So I guess I was wanting to get thoughts of you, from everybody, of what your priorities were. Is it priority one? I know that based upon cost, obviously, if we can do everything, we want to do everything, because these 4 and 3s will quickly become 2s and 1s. Any other questions or anything else, Steve, that you want to? Well, that's what. Oh, yeah, that stuff can be, I think that stuff, I think some of these priority force things, fixing the pavers, some of, caulking, or some of those things can,
And
yes.
a lot of these things that were the priority 4s especially, but even some of the 1s and 2s and 3s that they thought needed to be fixed, I don't think were critical issues. Some of them were, as far as appearance, just like the paver stones out underneath the picnic table not being level. That's not a huge issue. And they've been like that for how
Yeah,
long?
we
We
can
could
get-
address that, and it wouldn't be a critical issue.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of those type things, yes, we could do that would save the county money that we could
I
do
guess
on
one
our
thing
own.
that I would like to have seen in this report is, it's a very detailed report. But I would also like to have seen it in a report form, you know, kind of a list of here's everything that needs to be, but that's kind of nitpicking on my, you know what my boards aren't coming today. More report form versus presentation form. You know, here's all the things that, and listed. But yeah, you are correct, Debbie. There are some things in the priority fours, and maybe even some within each maybe that we can do, but we would just have to go through each one and determine.
I would also like to look at all the ADA stuff and decide how much of it we actually want to do, because there's quite a bit of ADA stuff, and some of it we like bringing up the railings.
Oh, yeah, those are the things that we will be able to get waivers on. I mean, that, obviously, we're not changing
Which is
the
going to
historic structure.
reduce the cost some.
Yeah.
So we have to identify which ADA things we want to do, and which ones we're not going to do.
We would probably want to bring in, or talk to somebody, or Indiana Landmarks, or whoever who could assist us with determining, because this is a historic building, what ADA are required. Obviously, you know, the signage and those types of things are absolutely required. You know, raising the railing around the stairwell, I don't know. So we probably want to bring in some. You're shaking your head.
That's what I keep saying.
Well, I'm sure that there
and
are.
I guess I get a little frustrated sometimes because we don't get the assistance from some of the organizations that seem to holler the loudest when we change things and say, you know, we can do this, this, and this. But then when we try to get help, it's like you hear crickets in the background, or we don't qualify because we're government. But it makes it awful difficult for us to accomplish some of these goals, because I know there's funding out there to take care of some of this, and I know other places do it, so I don't understand why we have so much trouble getting it done.
I think it was you, Steve, that forwarded a grant opportunity for the courthouse on historic, and ARA did say they would be more than happy to help, but they'd like a sit-down meeting with the commissioners and the council to kind of talk about that, and they're willing to do it Zoom or live. So just, that was not a lot, but every little bit adds up. The fact that it is a very historic building, it likely would be a priority for
Also,
whatever
we
agency.
are going to be making a decision one way or the other this week. That is on the itinerary for grant writer. So that decision will be made this week as well, or it's on the itinerary to be discussed.
Bobby, can I ask a question? What, you went through that list of ARP that you kind of generalized, estimated would be left over. And a lot of that was for the first tranche, the first 4.65.
Mm-hmm.
What did you calculate was maybe the total savings between both tranches, the most recent and the previous, when you added all those things up, how much ARPA money would be?
Roughly $175,446.
Okay, that was from the first tranche, right? Because you've got 4.65 million from the second one that just came in.
Right, but there's monies that's been we've not appropriated any money out of the second tranche yet, have we? Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
700, 800, what did you say, 700 or 800, 700 left from the first estimated?
That I don't have that number of what's left of, I was just saying what we haven't spent that was appropriated.
Right.
I don't have the number of what's not been totally appropriated. I'll have to get that.
Okay,
I was just looking on, that's the only thing I had Kayla get me. So I'll have to look at what's not been appropriated, what we have total between the two.
so Ed, when you were talking about leaving something back from ARPA, you were talking about the second amount that we received this June?
Mainly, yeah.
Okay,
Please use your mic.
which is 4.65. You wanted to save some of that back, is what you were saying.
I would
For
like to
unforeseen.
save almost half of it as a cushion, but
Okay.
Okay.
because with the grant and with some of that money,
Your thoughts?
look, and with cutting some of the costs with the ADA stuff and whatnot off 1 and 2,
I don't know that's going to be multiple millions cutting that, but
I
I
The
guess
most
I'm
urgent-
okay with leaving some back. I don't know that I want to leave half of it back.
I'm not talking about forever. We have several years to spend that money.
We have until 2024 to appropriate it, 2026 to spend it. So if we're going to be doing things using ARPA money on these buildings, because these buildings won't be repaired in 6 months, it will take a while to get that done. We have to start moving forward because it all has to be spent by December 31st, 2026.
The Justice Center didn't have nearly as much.
No, they
as
did
the others
not.
did it, because it was a newer structure.
Correct. So,
When would we get the new bond money?
Sometime in early 2023 would be my estimate. That'd be a question we would ask them. A lot of it depends on the interest rate and what they negotiate. They're going after that company they went with the food and beverage, which was a company that ended up the best interest rate was through a bank, which is kind of surprising. But right now that's kind of the climate things are under. But the sooner we lock it down, because the feds are going to increase the prime any day again, and then probably again. So the sooner we get that pinned in instead of penciled in, probably the better rate we're going to get. And the way the rates are going, that could be significant over the course of the term of the bond. So the sooner the better, most likely, is what Baker Tilly's advising us.
so what,
I thought we had to close by the end of this year.
We do,
Once we close, then that's when.
yeah.
So it has to be done by the end of this year.
We have to close by the end of this year.
yeah.
Because the one's going off December 31st, we have to have that all the paperwork and all the T's dotted or
And
crossed
most
and
of
I's.
this work, by the time we find contractors and whatnot, probably not going to start until next spring anyway.
Right.
Oh, at the very, very, very,
If you're
I'm
luck-
going to
if
say
you're lucky,
next fall or toward the end of the year, actually. Honestly, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not a contractor, but I'm guessing 6 months. So let's look at schedules. The 16th? Okay, cool. I'm sorry, we're getting ready to say something. You looked like you were going to say something.
I don't have my.
See, I used my phone.
Are you going to get your book?
Could you grab Steve?
Grab
Ed's as
mine
well?
too. It's right on the
September?
right on top. Thanks.
Bobby, you talking about September?
This Friday. Because conference is all next week. This Friday.
This would be a joint meeting.
Yep. Because conference is next week, everybody's,
I can have Kayla sit in. I still don't have salaries. I'm supposed to be out next week. I have one, which I may not be. I don't have a date or time for that yet.
okay, so Kayla can set in.
She'll have to because there's just too much work for me to
Okay.
get done.
Okay,
And I have an appointment that morning.
okay.
I already have one.
And I'm just trying to, because if we don't do it this week, it'll be 2 more weeks, and we're just delaying it that much further, and I don't know, I don't want to delay, because if they're coming at your meeting on the 29th, is that correct, Kenan? Oh, their meeting's the,
Yeah, because the first was on a Thursday, so fourth Thursday's 22nd.
oh, well, we're going to be at conference.
That's what I don't know that I
Yeah, I'm going to be at, we won't be here on the 22nd, so, but that's okay.
Well, it's over that morning. There's breakfast that morning. Ed and I'll drive
I
out.
I'm going to the guest house annual that night.
Do you have to have that for the 22nd meeting, just what your priorities are?
We'd like to, partially because of the bond. There's a whole bunch that Baker Tilly says they need to get.
Because unless Kayla's out, I'm out all week. There's no way I have too much work
Okay.
to try and be able to even go next week.
What if we just present the rough figure of priority ones and twos is what we'd like to do, so they have something to put down on their bond, or the Baker Tilly, would that satisfy that if we just basically went priority ones and twos on our report?
Why do I have $8 million?
I think all
in
Baker
my
Tilly
hip
needs
pocket?
is to be aware of this report, and they'll feel good about prioritizing the priorities that are listed, the priority ones, twos, and maybe some of the threes. I think they have more information here than as much as they had on the food and beverage. This is probably more detailed, so they can
Has
go
anybody
forward
picked
with,
theirs up?
you can do the fine prioritizing later, but there's more than enough to take up 5.7 million.
Oh, yeah.
Plus the R, plus the GO. What did you say was left of the current GO that expires?
Not very much.
I thought you said it was
Between 7
less than
and
400,000 last time because
It depends on
the day.
who needs money from it, so.
Okay. But there's some left.
Well, that has kept us things fixed.
So that's the way we have to operate.
That's sad, but true.
Yep.
That's the unexpected things that pop. I think that's what Ed was alluding to. There's going to be things that'll pop up over the next 2 years. that
I mean, just like
can't
we're sitting here
foresee.
right now, and we have the fans running, and you can hear the one in the back thumping, because I have a feeling we're going to lose blades off of these.
Let's hope not during a meeting that it goes
And
flying.
see, that's what I mean. These are things that I don't think they're even listed on a priority list one way or the other, but those are things that are going to come up that you're going to have to address that need to be done. And these are the little hidden things. Once you start getting into stuff, these are going to pop up, that we're going to need extra money besides what we're appropriating everywhere, that these are unforeseen hidden costs that are going to pop up at us that we're going to have to cover.
I know the council that I've talked to on the new GEO bond, some of them were feeding back they'd like to do the same thing Ed said, not commit all of it for the same reason. Because that bond's going to be like a 20-year bond. No, pardon me, that's going to be like a 5.3-year bond. And that's going to extend beyond the ARPA deadline. So I'd like to leave something back from that. And not expend all 5.7, but keep something back for the things that are going to fall apart after
I
ARPA.
wasn't too far off. 793,000. 83, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Left on the one that expires this December? You better get spending, because then they have to be spent or
I was trying to
appropriated.
keep some of it for when we hired the grant writer for matches was my
Right.
original thought process.
You said the grant writer, you're going to make a decision this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you easily have $8 million between most of the 5.7 and what's left of ARP and what's left of the current GEO. You've got $8 million, and their priorities of 1 through 4 is 10 million to 11 million. So you're going to be able to probably get into some of the priority threes, and safely after you prioritize them. You're going to have $8 million available between ARP and GEO and the new GEO.
Just makes me nervous to bond for that much in the economic times that we are facing.
The 700,000, there may be a couple of things that you have not paid out.
Yeah. I think we're still waiting on a few security cameras and.
Well, and, some of the repairs you've done at the Justice Center, we talked about, I don't think we've got those bills yet, but some of those bills at the Justice Center. Repairs.
Right. Okay, so the 16th?
I'm available until 4 p.m. that day right now, if you're talking about this Friday. I don't know how many.
Because we'll have to notice it.
I'll have to figure out a way Kayla's off.
Oh, Kayla's off. What, can we have maybe Rachel or, oh, not Rachel, yeah, Rachel.
Depends on what we're putting in.
I know it, I know.
It's gonna take, we're so late, it's gonna take the entire staff too.
Okay. So it looks like the
And I don't know
16th.
whether- And I'm pretty sure Kayla's off that day, let me ask.
Okay.
I'll send something out to the council as soon as we come up with a time. I've done quite a bit of work on the salaries last night when I got home, so I can hand this to Debbie. That'll help her get started big time. So it may not be as catastrophic as she thinks.
Oh, they still have to put the budgets in.
You know, this will help her immensely. She could start this afternoon on this. And we'll pin down the rest of it tomorrow.
She leaves at noon on Friday, so we'd have to do it first thing Friday morning at 9 o'clock. Is she here at 9? Would you rather we wait and do it when you're here? Okay. Because in order to do Friday,
Question, we could call Lisa and say if we gave you what was in these books,
can you,
you can go over,
without having a joint meeting?
or if you guys want a joint meeting,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter.
Thoughts, Steve? Just give them and see how far we can go with all these priorities. Just give them the copy of this instead of,
That, I will say, just,
because I don't know why
there's
having
too
a
many
joint.
unknowns at this point, in my
Uh-huh.
opinion,
Right.
that we're not going to be able to account for. So basically, these are going to be ballpark for
Yeah,
them.
correct.
And just hand them the book and
Because
say,
we
hey,
don't even know, and I mean, these are based upon 2023.
And that's going to be estimates because they'll probably go up before then. And I guess
And we
this has
don't know
been-
what we're going to get into when they start,
Yes.
just like any other
And this has
construction.
been my concern with all
remodel.
this all along, with not doing the whole thing, and I realize we're not gonna have the money to do it, but
Mm-hmm.
by the time you get around to doing it, then it's, instead
Mm-hmm.
of 11 million, it's 25 million, and we just keep kicking it down the road, and then we become just as guilty as everybody else has, and it's always been because of the money. I mean, I'm not blaming anybody for not
Mm-hmm.
doing these things, because they hit the same financial constraints that we do. But there's going to come a point when things are going to absolutely just fall apart.
Uh-huh.
And if we don't start addressing and bite the bullet and do it, we're going to be screwed.
So I guess the question is, are we okay just giving Baker Tilly some rough numbers without having I mean, I guess my question, having a joint council commissioners meeting, what would we accomplish?
Probably more detailed discussions than what you've had this morning. I really believe you're going to have 8 million safely with a buffer held back for what, like Ed was saying, for unforeseen. I feel really strongly that you're going to have easily $8 million. And if you want to meet Friday and just talk about how do we come up with 7.5 to 8 million, you are going to have that easily with what's left, and leaving a lot in ARPA and not even spending all the 5.7. And plus you've got 500,000, let's say, on the current bond to get things rolling, to get, so that maybe in 2023 some things can get going. You're going to have easily 7.5 to 8 million. You can discuss specifically things, and it sounds like you want to do most of the priority ones and twos,
Well,
and
yeah.
that's going to be 6.5 million to 7 million, and then you can start digging into the priority threes and maybe even a couple of the priority fours. With 7.5 to 8 million, you're going to be able to chip away at a large majority of their page 89.
These are some of these, the priority 1 through 4s, and this is what I want to be careful of us doing, is some of those priority 4s may have to be fixed along with a priority
Priority one,
1.
correct.
And so if, I don't want us to double spend because we tore something up to fix something else, and then we have to go back and fix it again because we didn't plan on it. So we need
Yeah,
to make
all-
sure this is
some of
very
these
well
kinda
coordinated,
overlap.
yes.
They overlap, and, it's not like when you're doing a remodel, you can say, you know what, I'm not gonna do this, but yeah. Well, I guess what, since Baker Tilly's time is valuable, what I would like to see is us give them, these are our totals. What can we do with bonding? We know that we can get up to 5. That's a given. I guess I don't right now, without knowing some of the other information from Baker Tilly. I think what we just need to do is get this information to Baker Tilly. I don't know that we necessarily have to have a joint commissioner council meeting to do so, especially since time is of the essence, and then they can come back with information at your council meeting. I'm assuming it,
Yeah, I would say give them
all four, and
basically
let
this
them
whole
work.
page
89,
and say we need between this much and this much.
yeah.
And
This page is page 89, right?
yes, page 89.
Well, is everybody on 89? I'd like to share some thoughts, and these are just thoughts. Let's say we have let's say we have 8 million, which I really think, unless the interest rates go berserk, we'll have the 5.7, maybe 5.5 if they really go up in the interim. You would have 5 million on the priority ones. You would have 1.5 million on the priority twos.
You probably need to go to the high end and not the low end.
Okay, I'm just rounding. Priority threes, you'd have 1 million, and priority fours, Steve, with what you said about you'd get into something, you'd have 500,000, and right there is 8 million. That is actually going over the priority 1 minimum, and you'd still have a cushion left, a cushion that if something major came in when they started constructing, you could go over the 8 million. Because really, you have 8.9 million, so that's leaving almost 1 million back on the table for unforeseen. So like 5, 1.5, 1, and 0.5. You could go 90% into their list on page 89, just with what we know that we are going to be getting. So it may not be as hard a decision to prioritize. And like I said, once I get into things, that's when it's going to start showing up, because this is just observing, going around observing. So you're going to get some unforeseen. And it may go into the top on these ranges. It may end up going into the upper ranges on some of these. It may go on the
I guess
lower
it's gonna
ranges
go
on
over.
probably everything is. The only thing that hasn't is the jail. And
Trust me, I'm doing a remodel. It went from this
and
to
it's-
more than 2.5 times.
And it's far worse now than it used to be 5 or 10 years ago. Everything's going over, and supply shortages. You can't get what you need to finish whatever in the time you want. So that's up to you. The council would like to have some input.
So I just want to make sure that when we're doing these things, the likelihood of us being able to do it again in the next, foreseeable future is slim to none. And if we don't capitalize on what we have now and try to get as much of this done as quickly as possible where we can actually feasibly be able to pay for it, then whoever 20 years down the road is going to be faced with the same thing and wonder why we didn't
And
do
they're going to
something.
be saying the same thing we
Yes.
did. Why didn't this get?
you
it's
have
been
an
20 years of
opportunity
not,
That we'll not likely have again.
No, likely we will never have this opportunity again, so.
ARP and the GO bond, you have a unique opportunity.
okay, so do I have a motion to send this, I don't know if we want to send the whole document, or we've got extras, or just this page. I'm okay with sending the whole document to Baker Tilly for their review.
Lisa Miller will need a copy.
Or
I would
Lisa
send the
Lees
whole
for
thing.
Ice Miller, excuse me, I'm sorry, I had the wrong one. Ice Miller.
Wonder if you can get this in digital format.
I'm sure we can. Lori Christie? Yeah, get it in digital format. It'd be difficult to email it to her, but we can send it to her.
If they have it in digital.
Yeah.
My question is, what about, you were talking about having these joint meetings, what if you had a meeting with ARA? Sit
Yeah.
down with ARA,
Yeah.
these are what we need done, can you help us find grants to get some of these projects?
Well, right now, the only thing I broached them with is the grant that Steve sent, which is $70,000 for the courthouse.
Yeah,
It was
like
a
something like that.
historic building, and they said definitely that's their bailiwick. They would be glad to
Do
help
we
with
need to
that.
bring in Indiana?
But that's just,
No more that are out there, maybe that,
I think your new grant writer could probably, year 2, get into some major things. Or
That's what I'm
2023
hopeful,
get into
yes.
some major things.
That's the goal. I would also, I guess we need to bring in Indiana landmarks. You know, the historical preservation, you know, any of the, I mean, you know, this is a historical building.
community foundations would be good.
Yeah,
They probably would.
I mean, well, 2 of the 3 buildings are, well,
Masonic is historic.
That just is in the historic district, not considered historic. You know, maybe there's others that I won't say and put on the spot right now. The RDC, the EDC, I guess I will put them on the spot.
Well, the RDC actually, they have monies. I don't know if this is a TIF district. It's not, is it? But the historic part, I think, has some validity. I think there's a lot of things federally for
Yeah.
historic and the state.
Yeah, so, okay, so do I have a motion to move this document over to a copy digitally or hard copy to Lisa Lee at Ice Miller for her to review so they can, when they come back on the 22nd to the council meeting, they will have better information regarding bonding,
I say we send them both.
hard copy and digital?
I would.
agree. Okay, we have a motion, second?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Okay, and then probably once we get, I think it makes more sense that once we get all of the pertinent information, then we have a joint council commissioners meeting because we have more information to discuss versus what ifs type of more concrete versus in theory type of stuff.
One thing I think you should consider is hiring a construction manager.
Well, that will be I agree, but that'll be farther along into the whole process. I agree, an owner's representative they're called owner's representatives because that was not done with the jail. And hey, the lift station needs to be fixed. So I think an owner's representative is worth whatever the money is because that's what they do. I agree. But that's further on down the road in that process.
Well, it's not too far if you're going to start
Well, that's part of,
sending out bids. And
well, but we're
whatnot.
not even close to sending out bids, so that's in that process, yes. That's in that process.
I
bidding
think
out process.
DLZ did this for 8,000 with the hopes they'd be highly considered because this type of information from anybody else would probably be $25,000 easily to come up with this. I think they were hoping they'd be highly considered to play a role.
Everybody will have to put in a bid
Right.
and go through the process.
But they were willing to do something similar to this for the jail too, at what I thought was pennies on the dollar. And
Yeah, they're welcome to, when that bid process starts, to do that as well. Okay, anything else? Steve? Ed? Debbie? Kenan?
Victoria from ARA would like a sit-down sometime, so you might look at your calendar the week after the conference to see if there's maybe even a Zoom, because they're based in Columbus, Indiana, so maybe a
It
Zoom
would have to
meeting.
be a work session.
That'd be fine. Just might look at your calendar the week after the 22nd.
Or I guess it has to be a work session if there's more than one commissioner involved.
So just look at your calendars. I'll tell the council to do the same the week of the 25th or 26th, whatever. But be looking at that. That's kind of a down week without meetings at least. And I can get back with Victoria if there's a combined time. I don't think it'd be
That's
more.
a down week for the council. Commissioners have a meeting that week.
On Wednesday.
28th. He just said the week of the 26th.
So it could even be that Thursday or Friday after your Wednesday
I
meeting.
need to look. Well, I have two calendars that I have to work with. I don't have anything on the 27th.
Just let me know when you come up with a date, and I'll get back with Victoria or Eric, one of the two.
I'm good on the 27th. Are you okay on the 27th? Are you okay on the 27th?
Except for, I got a 9:30 appointment.
I've got a doctor's appointment at Ball in the morning.
So you want to do it in the early afternoon on the 27th if you can?
I'd be back by 1 easily.
Okay, you want to say 1:30? Tentatively,
This
and
could be a
then
Zoom. I'll work with Victoria.
tentatively at 1:30 on the 27th.
And this is a talk about grant opportunities, including the specific one for the courthouse and maybe beyond.
ARA.
It'll be a work session.
So it'd be a work session, okay?
No Zoom.
It can be Zoom, but it has to be a public work session if there's more than one commissioner, or public meeting if there's more than one commissioner involved. The reason Kennan's saying Zoom is they're in Bedford, correct? Bedford?
It'd just be easier for her possibly, but they've come up a lot of times from
Yeah.
Columbus.
Yeah, or Columbus, excuse me. I thought it was Bedford.
At their annual meetings at Bedford. coming
Yeah,
up.
that's it.
That's
Their
the one
annual
I
meetings in
said,
Bedford.
I'm not traveling 2.5 hours each way for a 1-hour meeting.
Okay. Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Was this a public meeting?